Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Promoter Eddie Hearn gave several interviews today about several different topics. Obviously, Fight Camp is starting this week. He spoke about several of his fighters, Canelo Alvarez primarily, but he also mentioned Dillian Whyte and what the situation is with Dillian Whyte at the moment, or what's going to be happening with him with regards to WBC and with regards also his next fight. Now, he stated that Dillian Whyte is reported anyway, to be in legal ongoing to the WBC with regards to the mandatory title shot. Okay, now as we all know, Dillian Whyte currently is the interim WBC World Heavyweight Champion. Interim is basically a glorified mandatory position. The only difference between being mandatory and being interim is essentially you get a title, you get a little belt, but essentially if the champion cannot fulfill his obligation or gets stripped or made champion in recess, if you're mandatory, you fight for a vacant title against number 2 or number 3, whoever's available in the rankings at the time. If you're interim champion, you don't have to do that. You get elevated to full champion. And that's basically what it is. It's just kind of like cutting out the middleman, you know. So you're not a world champion. You're a glorified world champion, but it's kind of on par with the IBO. That's kind of how I'd surmise it. If you're all IBO champion, you may as well be an interim champion, kind of like that. That's what Dillian Whyte is. Now, obviously, Dillian Whyte, had he beat Alexander Povetkin last summer, he would have been named mandatory, or the mandatory would have been called. I believe the date for the mandatory was February 2021. So that mandatory would have been called. We may very well have seen Dillian Whyte versus Tyson Fury by now, all right, if he'd beaten Povetkin. Now, he didn't. So Povetkin therefore inherited the interim title as well as the mandatory position. That was, he had the rematch, and Dillian Whyte was able to beat Alexander Povetkin back in March of this year. So essentially, from what I can gather with the rules, the mandatory with the WBC tends to reset. So God knows when it's called for Dillian Whyte, and I suspect that's why he's going down that road. Interestingly enough, I've also seen reports that Andy Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz is being talked about, or they're only saying talking, as a potential final eliminator as well. And that really would throw a spanner in the works. Would that mean, now when they say eliminator, but from what I saw it said final eliminator, that would essentially mean the winner will be mandatory for Tyson Fury. Where does that leave Dillian Whyte then? Does that mean Dillian Whyte is kind of being left out in the wilderness? Will they elevate Fury to full champion, or to, what's the word, the franchise champion, and then make Dillian Whyte just the regular champion, and then the winner of Ortiz versus Ruiz fights Dillian Whyte? I don't know. It's a bit all over the shop. I don't like that franchise title at all, because it really is, it's unnecessary. There's no need for it. And with WBC, I wouldn't even be at all shocked if Fury fights Wilder and the winner gets elevated to franchise. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest, to be honest with you, because it cuts out the middleman. It cuts out the mandatory. If you look at Devin Haney, he's the quote-unquote regular champion at 135. Teofimo Lopez is the consensus champion, but Teofimo has no mandatory with the WBC. It's almost like they've wanted to cut the mandatory out and give a regular belt to someone and be like, right, you fight the mandatories, but he can do what he likes. He can make the unifications. That's essentially what they've done. Now, with Eddie Hearn saying that Dillian Whyte is going down the legal road, now he went down that road last year, do you remember? I think this is one of the reasons why I was so convinced that we'd see an upset in the Povetkin fight, because throughout the whole build up to that fight, he was talking about going the legal road to WBC. I believe he did actually take legal action against the WBC. Now, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, reportedly anyway, he did, or allegedly I should say, but I'm pretty sure he did, which ultimately led to the February 2021 mandatory time slot. Now, that happened last year, but we seem to be in a kind of similar scenario this year. I'm just going to throw this out there. Dillian Whyte has done himself no favours with the WBC, because he's number 1 ranked for years now, but he's only been mandatory for the last, I think, about 2 years since he fought Rivas. But Dillian Whyte has always been very vocal, especially at Mauricio Sullivan, that they're not doing enough, that he wants his shot, going down these legal roads. At the end of the day, there's only so much certain people have their limits. If Dillian Whyte is making things difficult for the WBC, they're going to make it difficult for Dillian Whyte, I believe, anyway. And I think that Dillian Whyte may think he's helping himself by going down these legal roads and doing this, doing that, but in another sense, he could be, actually digging his own grave. Because put it like this, right? You're Mauricio Sullivan. And, you're doing everything with all the other divisions. You're doing this, you're doing that. You're working on this, you're working on Undisputed, you're working on this. And you've someone constantly in your ear saying, when am I getting my shot? I'll go down the legal road. You're Mauricio Sullivan. You're going to look at that and be like, back in the queue. So I wonder, is that what's happening with Dillian Whyte? And I wonder, is that why they're saying Ruiz Ortiz potentially final eliminator? I wonder, would they go down that road of making the Wilder Fury winner champion, franchise champion? I hope they don't. I can't stand that franchise. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense to me. I hope they don't go down that road. I remember Dillian Whyte last year. I remember Eddie Hearn when he did. I think I'm nearly sure he went legal last year with it. And Eddie Hearn was interviewed about it. And he was always kind of like trying to... he was always trying to, look after Dillian Whyte in a sense that he didn't speak out against them, but he was trying to stay in the WBC's good books. And one of the reasons why is because for Eddie Hearn, if you're a promoter, you have one fighter, right, who is mandatory for the WBC. He's going through all this back and forth with them. You want to distance yourself as the promoter from that. And some people might say, gee, why would he want to distance himself? He's looking out for Dillian Whyte. Yeah, he could be looking out for Dillian Whyte, but he wants to distance himself because that's a reflection on Eddie Hearn if he's looking out for just one person with one sanctioning body. Because he has so many fighters in other divisions, right, who fight WBC sanctioned fights. He doesn't want to get on their bad side. Do you remember Anthony Joshua? After the Dillian Whyte fight, he was number 2 ranked by the WBC for Deontay Wilder. Aside from Dillian Whyte, and even then at the time, Dillian Whyte was no more than British level. He'd fought nobody. And he was already number 2 ranked. Because if you have a good relationship with a sanctioned body, you can get these higher rankings. If you look at Al Heyman, primarily PBC fighters tend to fight for the WBC. Primarily, they're very high ranked. Sean Porter versus Danny Garcia, vacant WBC title, vacated by Keith Thurman, another PBC fighter. Goes on to unify with Errol Spence. Who was his next mandatory? Was it Danny Garcia? You see how I'm getting at? It stays in-house. Al Heyman, PBC, WBC tend to have a very good relationship. Eddie Hearn, you could say the same with WBA. They tend to be, very highly ranked. His fighters, WBA, they tend to fight for a lot of tricky WBA titles. Look at Frank Warren, WBO. Same with Bob Arum, WBO. All these promoters have their sanctioning body. So Eddie Hearn maybe has a better relationship with the WBA than the WBC, but he still doesn't want to have a stained relationship with any of the sanctioning bodies. So for him, it seems like he wants to kind of keep his nose out of what Dillian Whyte is doing with them to make sure that he stays in Mauricio Sullivan's good books. Okay, my fighter, you can try to book at him, but with me, I'm just a promoter. I'm from my other fighters as well. So I reckon that's kind of what Eddie Hearn is looking at with this. In terms of, because I've been going on a bit, in terms of Dillian Whyte's next fight, they're talking about, pretty much seems like a done deal, Jermaine Franklin in September the 11th in America on DAZN, I would imagine, because they're not going to put that fight on Sky Box Office. I know Dillian Whyte can kind of pick and choose, but just from the way this sounds, it sounds like it's going to be DAZN. I mean, we are talking, a 3-4 a.m. start, although saying that DAZN might do it at a normal time over here if it's with DAZN, because they're very good like that. They've been very good to people from Ireland and the UK with putting some of their cards on, like Jaime Munguia, at like midday US time, but we get them kind of like late enough at night, like 11 or 10 o'clock at night, which is brilliant for us. It's really good for us. So they might do something like that. But Jermaine Franklin, not a particularly impressive heavyweight from what I've seen. Saying that, Dillian Whyte, I think if ever a man deserves an easy fight, it's Dillian Whyte. He's had tough fight after tough fight after tough fight after tough fight. Rematch with Povetkin, Joseph Parker, 2 Chisora fights, Marius Wack, Oscar Rivas. If ever a man deserves an easy touch, it's Dillian Whyte. And I don't begrudge him this fight, to be honest with you. Don't begrudge him it at all. Be interesting to see how he looks in it, but don't begrudge him it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I just thought I'd talk about this, make a video on it, give my 2 cents on the matter. However long I've been going on for, I don't know. Hopefully not too long. I do try and keep these videos below 10 minutes, but I just get going. I just get going. And I just get talking, and then it just goes. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. There's a nice little bell icon up there, Hit the subscribe, like, notification, all that good stuff. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. #GMans Rocks, all that good stuff. Peace.